I mean, one of the things that Kenyon's pointed out to me is that you make more money in buying than you do in selling. If you look at it as I'm going to make an extra $50,000 or something because I'm going to put in $50,000 18 months earlier, it's a really easy one to work out.
Hi Matt and Mel, we'd like to welcome you to this episode of the Relatable Property Investor. Welcome to the couch. Yes, we've got Ben with us today, who's your property advisor here at Duval. So I thought we'll just get started straight away and find out a little bit about you guys. So what I want to know first and foremost is tell us a little bit about your background, how you grew up, what your parents taught you about property and money, what your understanding was before you kind of met Duval, and what you had done already in terms of your own property journey. Maybe tell us a bit about that.
So I grew up in a small town in the Rangitikei, and we just had a small, simple home. My parents were very old school, so they just worked very hard. They didn't have an investment property or anything like that. And they were you saved everything and then you didn't spend it till you'd saved the money. So, they didn't believe in any kind of debt. And they just worked very hard. So I had quite a simple upbringing.
My parents split up when I was really young, and my stepfather and mum were kind of on the wealthy end of it. So we'd go off to the holidays on the Gold Coast and had the house in Devonport and so on, and then my dad and my stepmother, we'd go away camping over Christmas and that end of the spectrum. So it was two quite different outlooks on how they were going. My stepfather was a builder by trade, owned a timber yard. We did up houses in Devonport, constant living in a state of renovation.
So that's where you get it from, with your renovation.
It
makes a lot of sense.
And then my mum and my stepfather couldn't help both my brother and myself out in getting homes. So eventually they said, well, we can help you out if you want to go and get one together, which was an interesting move. But then we went and looked at some places, ended up with the one where we are now, and it's been, 17 years there and probably 16 and a half years of renovation.
But anyway, you have two children of your own now as well, so obviously it's sort of setting that path and showing them that way for the future for them too. But yeah, I do think it's an interesting point that you've started with your brother, and I'm taking it he's no longer involved in your property.
No, he moved out about similar time to when Mel moved in, and effectively we bought my brother out. So we bought him out, and he's moved into a place that he's happy with over in Mount Albert. So
yeah, what did you know about property before you met Duval in terms of using it as an investment strategy, about money, about building personal wealth, and that sort of thing?
I didn't really know anything. All I knew was that if I had some equity in our property, we should use it to try and get another property. And I had sort of read a bit of Rich Dad Poor Dad, which that sort of started that thought for me a while back. But we just sort of kept ticking on and not doing anything for a while. And then we met you guys and through school. And then we started to think about it more and more and more. And then it was, I think, for me, I was a lot more forward about it, but Matt's more cautious, and he thinks about the finances, where I'm a bit more just dive on.
I've seen that quite a lot. I think it's interesting, not just for you guys, but in general, there's always a good balance. I mean, you and Kenyon, you've very good balance. And then Matt and Mel, there's always that one that's really like, I want to do this, and this is the way we go. And the other one goes, right, well, we're going to think about how we're doing this properly. And I think it's quite a healthy relationship you need, or else if you're both conservative, nothing gets done. If you're both really aggressive, then like too much gets done sometimes.
And I mean, I was certainly, I was much more held back on the idea of kind of where we go from there. I think watching my parents renovate houses and build them and go through that process was very much for me more of a, I've got my home now, I'm going to renovate, and I'm going to, we'll make it look nicer and we'll feel more home and all the rest of it. I mean, Mel's been trying to make us move out of there for about 10 years into something else. And to be fair, if there was that option and it turned up, then we'd certainly look at it. But it's close to the kids' school, and it is what it is, and we're living in it.
And it's a nice home, and it's served you guys well, and now it's served you very well in terms of what's happened next. One thing Kenyon often talks about is the fact that you can't save your way to wealth. You're never going to do that. You need to be doing something with that cash, right? This is something for you that you learnt and you taught and you saw growing up.
Yeah, and sort of reflecting back, I know that you know, as they got to a later stage in life and they wanted to help me get into a property, but they just couldn't afford to.
Mm-hmm.
The bank wouldn't loan any money, and I saw how hard it was for them not to be able to do that. Yeah, and just, you know, they just work so hard. You know?
And obviously you've got 3 now with Duval, so you've got Avenues, Mackenzie and Verge is obviously not even built yet, so you've bought that off the plan, and not even seen the Avenues. And this is a very good example of, you know, the numbers stack. If it works on paper and it's working in terms of, you know, knowing what you're paying for the property, knowing what the rental income is going to be, knowing what your bank's doing and all the rest of it, actually, if it adds up, you don't really even need to.
And we didn't buy it for any sentimental reason or for anything like that. We bought it, you know, for an investment. So.
Absolutely.
And then, of course, you've got your management side of things, which takes care of the rest of it. So it was literally hands off. It was, hey, we're going to buy this one. Okay, cool, sign there. And then what happens? Oh, then our bank account gets created and money gets put into it. And that's essentially what we've seen.
It's straightforward.
And it's been, you know, to me that's a real eye opener, because I would have been on that real edge of, is this going to work? Is it not going to work? But then we've now 12 months down the track, and there's some money sitting in the account. All the, you know, the body corps and the bits and pieces that have come up all been sorted out. So you know, it's just been ticking over.
It's a real common theme we've had with people on the couch. They talk about how there's real hands off and they're not as actively involved because they realise that your time is far more valuable than your money. And they've learnt the old way that, hey, I'm going to put time into it to make a bit of money, but if I can actually put less time in and it still makes money, then happy days.
And also, like, leave it to the experts, you know, like people who do what they do well, let them do it. Because it's not worth us trying to take on that kind of responsibility when you don't know what you're doing.
And what do you think you've learned from working with Duval?
I think that, again, it comes back to that group of people. You've got an expert in each of the fields that are involved in getting this done for us. And basically it's in everybody's interest to get these things rolling. So it's not just a case of, you know, John's working on commission and Tom's gets this. It's actually we're building people's futures, and I think we're all finally kind of coming to this conclusion of this wave that's coming through is taking everybody with it, as opposed to you know, just picking out people. And I think it is the fact that just about anybody can now get into that. At whatever level they can start.
So the next question I have for you guys is, where to from here? What's your plans? What do you want to do next?
I think it's pretty much that we've been bugging the bank and Ben for as soon as they're basically ready, we'll be signing off the next one. The banks have been really cautious about having more than one off plan at the moment, and so that's been the real sticking point from the bank, has been we're not going to do it right now. But the original plan was that we wanted something for each of the kids for later on, and so our absolute minimum starting was that we wanted to have at least 2, so that each of the kids had something, whether they decide to move into them when they get out of uni or whatever they choose to do with them. And now I think it's just that snowball effect of going, well, hang on a minute, we, you know, potentially we're in our 40s, we can, you know, by 50s we can actually decide what we want to do for some work if we still choose to carry through with that, or where we go, really.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely want to get to a point where, you know, I can help my children without thinking. We can take holidays, we can enjoy the older years without a continual struggle. And I don't want that for my children in the future.
Buying off the plan. What did you think about that process? Because was that something you'd thought or considered before?
I definitely had, because I sort of understood the benefits of, you know, buying at that stage, because obviously it is going to go up from there. There's no question about it. So that I was keen on that before I even thought about, you know, purchasing one that was actually already rented, which also makes a lot of sense in its own way. The fact that it's already there, it's potentially
because you've kind of done both, haven't you?
Yeah.
You bought one that was already built, and then you also bought one that, or 2 off the plan, sight unseen.
Well, we had one that we bought that was tenanted when we signed on the dotted line, and then we had the other one which was the other one was built. So we've got Verge that is still to be built, but the other 2 were both a case of actually guys, we've got this property that's sitting there, it's got a tenant in it, do you want to buy it? And I was like, oh, well, okay. And I think that was a really simple numbers game of, well, what's it renting for, what's it going to cost, and what's the bank going to be taking out of it? Oh, all right, well, let's sign that one.
So I guess from off the plan, really, you understand the concept now that, and like you say, in terms of the capital gains that you get, paying your deposit, giving it however long the time frame is for it to be built, and having those capital gains in it at the end, at the other end of it.
I mean, one of the things that Kenyon's pointed out to me is that you make more money in buying than you do in selling. So the reality is to get in at that base level and go, well, actually, if I'm going to make, if you look at it as I'm going to make an extra $50,000 or something because I'm going to put in $50,000 18 months earlier, well, again, it's a really easy one to work out. And I think that's where the off the plans scenario worked. But for my peace of mind, growing up in the bricks and mortar and you know, my old man being a builder and all the rest of it, is that's how my headspace works. So seeing a building and having someone move into it and knowing that it's there was probably where I was more comfortable. So I think that's where it worked, and that we kind of went, well, we'll diversify and go one of each and see how they go.
And you did have some good advice, which was, you know, stagger it, one off the plan, one that's already built and rented, one off the plan. You know, which made a lot of sense.
It will purely be organic from now on of what's there. I mean, if another one shows up that's, you know, that's got the right figure on it and it's got someone in it, or it's off the plan and there's another one there that we want to go for.
And I love that. I see that all the time. People's investment strategies will change as they grow. It's a time of life thing, you know. And when you're younger and more aggressive, you want to just get as many as you can. And then when you're older, you go, I've got to actually think about what am I doing here and who it's going to benefit. And that always changes.
The younger that you can start this process, obviously, the better. We, you know, like Matt said, we're in our 40s, but I think we've still got enough time, you know, to create a reasonable future. We're on the right track now.
And we've got the right support,
Yeah.
which I think is the key. I mean, if someone had said 2 years ago, would you guys even think you'd be doing this? No, I've got a home, I've got a roof over my head, I've got somewhere to sleep at night, I can make dinner. I'm good, thanks.
Well, thank you so much for coming in today. We really appreciate your coming and chatting with us, and I have no doubt that your story will be very inspirational and informative for anybody who wants to watch. So really appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you, guys. For me in particular, I came from a farm, a big 50-acre farm, and I bought a one-bedroom apartment in Mangere as my first property. So it was a really big mindset change, but I knew what I was doing, I knew what I wanted to do, I had the right people around me, and you just have to have that conviction. You've got to make a decision because no one else is going to do it.